Let's talk more about this, and I'm joined by Joseph Moreno. He's a former federal prosecutor in the U.S. and joins us now from New York City. Welcome to the program, sir. I appreciate your time.
Hi, Hannah. Good to be with you.
What do you make of this process that's happening now?
Well, it's not entirely surprising. It does seem like Republicans in the House have been building to this. And it's historic because we've had very few presidents impeached. And if this goes the way that certain people want it to go, that's what would happen. But that being said, I don't know if this really is going to have much impact on voters. And if anything, there's a lot of downside for the Republicans here because people know this whole story about Hunter Biden and the Biden family. And they can point to a federal prosecutor, David Weiss, who's been looking into this for 5 years. And so I think a lot of people would say, look, if he hasn't found anything, why is Congress going to spin its wheels looking for something?
So why is Congress going to spin its wheels?
Well, I mean, if you have a cynical view, you might think that the Speaker McCarthy is doing this to pacify the far right. And I think it could be viewed as retaliatory for all the trouble that Donald Trump has been facing lately. One has nothing to do with the other, but I can see people that certainly want the Republicans to do something. And perhaps this is the something that Speaker McCarthy is being pressured to do. But like I said, just because some far-right Republicans might like this, that does not mean it will play well necessarily with the general population.
Yeah, let me dig into a couple of things in there. You say pressured to do. You feel McCarthy could have been pressured into doing this?
Well, sure. I mean, if he has people on the far right of his party saying that there's some evidence of corruption in the Biden family, and the only tool we have at our disposal is to use the congressional investigation and possible impeachment process. I could see him saying, okay, well, the evidence might not really be there, and there might be some blowback from people who really want us to be doing the business of the country and not doing this sort of a thing. But I guess I'll do it to kind of keep people quiet because otherwise I could have a revolt in a part of my party. I'm just saying this is a possibility that he might be dealing with.
Yeah, so that possibility is essentially a reaction to the impeachment of Donald Trump.
It could be. I mean, look, that's the cynical view, right? I mean, I guess the good faith view is that maybe they feel there is some legitimate wrongdoing here and they need to investigate it. But again, there has been a federal prosecutor that's been assigned to investigate not just Hunter Biden, but the Biden family for the past 5 years. And a federal investigator, federal prosecutor has a lot more tools at his or her disposal, including the FBI, than Congress does. So I think a lot of people will say, if there was something to be found, it would have been found by David Weiss, the special counsel. And whatever Congress is doing here just seems like sort of overblown and, like the White House said, politically motivated.
So when it comes to voters, you keep saying that there won't really be an impact on voters. When you say that, is that because, they've seen what's been happening with Donald Trump and they're kind of tired of these types of storylines, or that there's nothing here to see? What's the reason for that?
So it's my speculation, of course, right? But again, I think if voters already believe that the Biden family is corrupt because of all the information that's already out there, then they've probably made up their minds already whether they're going to vote for Joe Biden or not in next year's election. I think same with Donald Trump. I don't think Donald Trump needs to be tried for these crimes for people to already make up their mind if they think he's guilty or not guilty and then vote accordingly. So I have to think that unless this impeachment inquiry turns up something that's so explosive and something new that we haven't seen before, I think it's the status quo. And if anything, you might see people annoyed that the Republicans in the House are doing this rather than focusing on things like the economy or immigration or healthcare or energy, all the things that the House is supposed to be doing rather than monopolizing its time with something like this.
Let's look ahead to the election then. How could this play out for Biden? I think there's potentially bad and potentially it could even help him.
That's right. If the Republicans are seen as overreaching and again, wasting their time and doing something purely out of spite, I think it could help Joe Biden. I think it would take, again, a very, very big turn of events for people, particularly Democrats, to say, okay, now I'm not comfortable reelecting Joe Biden. But I think it's much more likely that Democrats in Congress will circle the wagons, will say, we're not impressed with the Republicans have done here, and they're going to vote against impeachment.
Then, on the other hand, like you say, it could there could potentially be something big out of here. That's what they think they have. Would that, if it comes up, make them rethink about running Biden in the next election?
Well, I already think there's some consternation on the left about Joe Biden due to his age. And the fact that his record, he might tout his record as really good, but the fact is it's kind of spotty. And many people think that an economic slowdown, even a recession, is possible. Interest rates are high, inflation is high, immigration's a mess at the southern border. So his record is not fantastic to run on. And I think the best thing he has going is that his opponent is Donald Trump, most likely, who's even less popular than Joe Biden is. So I guess, sure, if this inquiry turns up some really bad stuff, maybe the party decides eventually to drop Joe Biden as their nominee. But it's very difficult to dislodge a president who wants to run for re-election. It almost never happens. So I think most likely it'll be a Biden versus Trump rematch a year from now.
What are you going to be watching for now?
Well, I guess you have to watch this impeachment inquiry to see if it goes anywhere. You have to watch Donald Trump's legal travails and see what happens there. I'm still skeptical that these trials will happen before next year's election, but some have been scheduled on the calendar, so that's going to be very explosive. And then, of course, the environment in the country. I mean, Joe Biden might sail to re-election because Trump is so unpopular. But then again, there could be a turn of events. There could be some kind of national defense issue. The economy could get really bad. So I think people will probably decide on those topics. Well, that's what their vote will be on, not necessarily an impeachment inquiry or the legal problems Donald Trump is facing.
Joseph Moreno, I want to thank you for digging into this with us. Appreciate you being on the program.
Thanks, Hannah. Good to be with you.